Now, what he miscalculated is somebody being in your supporting you does not mean that he's going to pick up the gun and start shooting his brother officers. So, even for Pakistan, he's not been good. He's not good for Pakistan. But people have forgotten that. If you recall his famous statement when he came and he said the situation is bad, but aapne ghabrana nahi. And after 1 year, people saying, now, ab to hame ghabrane do, And Asim Munir has got his flock tightly with him. And Asim Munir will become even stronger after September, when the next round of corps commanders will retire, and he will be able to appoint 5 3-star generals as corps commanders, so really strengthen his position. Asim Munir, the DG ISI, he done about 6 months, and he went to Imran Khan and said, look, corruption is emanating by your wife. She is the one who's involved in corruption. So Imran Khan did like that. That was his red line. So he had him sacked and brought in Faiz Amir. So there is that history between the two. Imran Khan has no vision. He has no program. He has no plan. How is he going to recover the economy? That's why Imran Khan was so dangerous. If he meddled around and tried to create a wedge in the Pakistan Army's leadership between the army chief, the corps commanders, or even among the middle and junior officers, that would have been dangerous for Pakistan. The Chinese cutting edge, it's called, salami slicing. Gradually, Pakistan is going to fall more and more into the Chinese debt trap. And China will take their pound of flesh. If they think Pakistan thinks they're going to take China for a ride, they're sadly mistaken.
Welcome to Hindustan Times. On the podcast today, we welcome Tilak Devasher, a man who perhaps knows Pakistan better than many Pakistanis themselves. And not just because he has an interest. He is a retired special secretary from the Cabinet Secretariat. He's authored a series of books on Pakistan, and definitive books on Pakistan, its troubled history of extremist ideologies, and of course also terrorist violence. He's currently a member of the National Security Advisory Board. Sir, welcome to the show. I want to talk to you about a lot of things, especially whether or not India benefits from this crisis of credibility that Pakistan is going through today. But first I want to begin with Imran Khan. The scenes that we saw on TV, on our TV screens, on our news channels, of how his supporters were going absolutely batty at his arrest, those scenes are unprecedented. Sure, Imran Khan is a cricketing icon who's now a politician, but how do you explain this sort of popularity? Why is he so popular?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. Nice to be here. That's a very interesting dynamic. I don't think so. The full story has yet been written on Pakistan. Imran Khan's popularity. Why is he so popular? Couple of points that I think are important. His cricketing background. The country is cricket crazy. He won the World Cup, so he was popular. His social activities, hospitals, university, and things. And then when he came into politics, he came on the back of the army that had cleared or built the narrative for him that all the other politicians were corrupt. And he was this Mr. Clean guy. So he came to the image of being Mr. Clean. He added a little bit of Islamic ideology or touch to it. We're talking about the Riyasat in Medina, which again, in a country like Pakistan, has a lot of resonance. So clean image, Riyasat in Medina, and now a cult has developed around him. So whatever he says, even if it is not true, people believe that it is the truth. And he's entitled to say what he's saying. If he does a U-turn or it proves to be wrong, it doesn't matter. That, he has said it, he's entitled to say it because of this image that he has. So, there's so many, those tapes which have come out, audio leaks,
Sex tapes,
his corruption cases, the way he's done favors to his friend, the ring which he sold off from Saudi Arabia, nothing sticks. People just don't want to believe it. If they know it, they just brush it under the carpet. So he has this larger-than-life image. Now, he could have done immense good with that image. Unfortunately, he's not a Democrat.
Right.
He is somebody who doesn't believe in talking to the opposition. He doesn't believe that politics is the art of the possible. You talk to people and that's how you move in consensus. He doesn't believe in any of that. He believes that what he says is it. He's an autocrat. And one of the reasons why he fell foul of the army is that he wants the army to do his bidding all the time. Whereas the army says, hey, you've just come. We've been there for the last 70 years. Right. So, there can't be two tigers in one particular forest. So that's one reason why he fell foul of the army. So I think the image that he has built up over the years, which the army actually helped to build by denigrating all the other politicians, and that this is the man of the shining star who will redeem or improve the lives of the people. And Pakistan has always been looking for heroes. The Pakistani people, because there has been very little development, they've always been looking for heroes. And they centered on this one man. Just as they centered on Zulfikar Ali Bhutto earlier, then Benazir Bhutto, then Nawaz. So they've always been looking for heroes. Till the scales sort of
tilt. And, it's the same army. In fact, we talked about U-turn. It's the same army that, he once revered, and he told people, don't speak ill of the army. You're doing a great disservice to the nation if you're criticizing the army. And everyone lapped that up. And now suddenly, all his supporters, and now suddenly he's done this about turn and he's on the war path with the army. And now everything bad that he's saying about the army, and people are still lapping that up. And that this messiah-like image that he's sort of developed, it clearly, yes, one thing is that the army created that image for him and it has stuck. So what about his own use of, let's say, social media or the kind of supporters that he has around him?
Yeah. So, with the army, I'll just talk a little bit why he fell out with the army. Because he started, the army has favorite politicians. They cannot allow a politician to have a favorite general. Right. He was very keen that the former DG ISI, Lieutenant General Faiz Amin, should continue in the ISI. Whereas the army chief wanted to post him as a co-commander so that he has to do 1 year of being a co-commander, then he can be in line or in contention for being a chief. And Imran Khan said no. And that's where Bajwa and General Bajwa and he actually fell out. But this was brewing for a while because even though the army brought him in 2018, within a year they realized that they'd done a mistake. That this man, what he was supposed to deliver, economic performance, keeping the polity together, not polarizing he had failed on all those parameters. So the army was getting suspicious and getting fed up of him. And this was the last straw. When he tried to meddle in army postings, not allowing the DG ISI to be relieved of command and to go to as corps commander in Peshawar. That's when the army decided to pull the rug under him. And since then, since April 22, he first claimed that it was the US conspiracy, that famous telegram he sort of waved to a crowd. And then he started saying, no, it's he did a U-turn from the US, and he said it's an army conspiracy and named General Bajwa. Right. That he's the man responsible for my... So he built up this narrative and his supporters just lapped it up. That it was the army that had entered into a conspiracy with the opposition parties and removed him from power. Right? And when Bajwa retired, the same thing is transferred onto Asim Uli. Now, the new army chief, he's saying this man is against me. And, he's the one who's now responsible for all this. So he built up this hatred against the army, all because he wanted the army to back him. And he's not against the army per se. He's against the leadership of the army that is not backing him and has gone neutral at a time when he actually wanted their support.
So it's like a child throwing a tantrum.
Absolutely.
मेरे को लेकर आए, अब मैं जो बोल रहा हूँ वो करो. नहीं तो I'm... But then he does have that kind of following to challenge the army, because I know I'm not seeing any other Pakistani leader, however charismatic and however, at the peak of their power, to be able to challenge the Pakistani army in the way that Imran Khan has done.
There, I think he's made a big mistake. He's bitten off more than he can chew, because he started believing that because he was so popular, he could take on the army and, whatever had happened on... See, he had prepared his supporters, or the supporters believe that if he's arrested, that's a red line, that we cannot accept his arrest. So that saw the intensity of the reaction, going into GHQ, burning the corps commander's house and all kinds of other government installations and buildings, especially the army. Because he created this hatred against the army amongst his supporters, and he felt that this is the way, and there were reports that he's immensely popular within the army, especially among the families, amongst the retired veterans. Now, what he miscalculated is somebody being in your supporting you does not mean that he's going to pick up a gun and start shooting his brother officers.
Right.
The army is not going to mutiny. But he miscalculated that his popularity was such.
Threads within the
And that they will
rank and file.
stage a, sort of a revolution, and they will pressurize the army leadership to come back to start supporting him. And that was the reason for the intensity of the reaction and his miscalculation. So he may have taken on the army for those 2-3 days, but the army lost a lot of charisma. But I think the army chief has recovered very well. And now it's the army that's on the war path, like the Empire Strikes Back. And then we can discuss a little later what steps he has taken to get back against Imran Khan.
But tell me something, sir. You have been following Imran Khan and Pakistani politics and Pakistani, in fact, not just the politics, policy, everything for the longest time. How do you see Imran Khan? Is he good for Pakistan? Is he bad for Pakistan? We'll come to India, whether he's good for India or bad for India. If my friend Sushant Sareen was here, he would say he's great for India. But how do you actually view him? Forget the Pakistani army for 1 second. In terms of Pakistan's development and growth, the kind of adulation he gets there, is that justified?
See, if you the evidence that we have is for 3 years and 8 months that he was in power. What did he achieve? Nothing positive. A lot of adverse things happened. He ran the economy to the ground. He changed 3 finance ministers, couldn't have a consistent policy, didn't know how to go about it. He didn't tackle COVID very well, right? He first said he will not do a deal with the IMF. Don't go to the IMF. He'd rather die than go to the IMF. Then he went to the IMF. Then he didn't fulfill the instructions of the IMF. So the IMF pulled out in February 22. And Pakistan landed up in a mess on that. On foreign policy, his relations with the US is not too good. Neither with Saudi Arabia because of the MBS. Not with China either. I mean, the CPEC did do very well when he was over there. So, and the kind of polarization that he did, putting the opposition leaders behind bars, and that only he's the man, he's not going to talk to them because they're tainted, they're corrupt. So he really polarized Pakistan society and polity to a great extent. So even for Pakistan, he's not been good. He's not good for Pakistan. But people have forgotten that.
Yeah, and because he has 121 cases against him, some of them, many of them even corruption cases. There have been cases where it's proven that there have been kickbacks. The Al-Qadir case, for instance, for which he was arrested very recently. His wife, Bushra Bibi, apparently wanted that 5-carat diamond from this property tycoon that you spoke about. It's all on record. But nothing seems to stick to this man.
Yeah. So that's what I mentioned. People just don't want to believe that. But whether he is good for Pakistan or bad, I think he's done very, very poorly. All the prime ministers before him, I think his performance, if you rate it, was probably the worst. So even for Pakistan, he's not been good.
Okay. Even for Pakistan, he's not been good, but there has been a huge, as you said, this Mr. Clean image that he's developed, a part of which the army sort of developed for him, has not been dented.
And also in comparison, you see, when the PDM government came, they inherited a shattered economy.
Right.
They inherited, the IMF had called off giving further tranches to Pakistan in February because he did not agree to he gave a huge fuel subsidy or didn't raise prices of fuel. So when they inherited this, the best course for them would have been to go into elections at that time.
Right.
They decided, no, we'll improve the economy. They couldn't, because the foreign exchange crisis, the debt had become so much, they were not able to. The IMF took very hard.
And then the floods happened.
Yeah. IMF imposed very stiff conditions. They had to raise the prices of fuel, became very unpopular. Then floods, 30 lakh people, 3 million people out in the open, living in tents and in bad health conditions. So in comparison, people say, oh yeah, Imran Khan, was, if you recall his famous statement when he came and he said the situation is bad, but aapne Ghabrana nahi hai. And after 1 year, people say, now, ab to hame ghabrane do, that because the conditions were bad. But in comparison, people have forgotten how bad Imran Khan's tenure was.
Okay. Let me just come to Pak Army, for instance. If someone had asked me even a month ago that, in this war between Imran and the Pak Army, who will win? I would have, in a heartbeat, said the Pakistani army. The army has, after all, ruled Pakistan directly or indirectly over the last 70 years. Now, that's not the case. But as you pointed out, the army is now getting the edge back over Imran Khan. Is that what you believe?
Yeah. I think it's a no-brainer. That whether it's the Pak Army or Imran Khan, yes, public perception, media, hype, especially social media, gave a big impression that the army is about to break and there are a lot of dissensions. Asim Munir is a weak chief, things like that. You see, the army chief has got 70 years of domination of Pakistan. He would not like to go down in history as the man who caved in or blinked first. Right. So if you notice in the last 5 or 6 days, taken a series of steps. The Special Corps Commanders Conference that they had. So and if you look at the ISPR press releases and the statement that came out, the army has said, we know this is a planned attack on the army installations. We know who did it. We're going to proceed against them as per the Army Act and the Official Secrets Act. And we will not allow this to happen again. If it does, we will not show any further restraint. So that is their stated position now. Then they have said we will establish army courts, which the National Security Council has also agreed. And army courts were established earlier also, if you recall, after the December 2014 massacre of the school children, the Army Public School Peshawar. So there is a tradition of trying civilians on the army courts. They have started orchestrating people in different parts of Pakistan are now coming out in support of the army. They are garlanding soldiers, they are throwing flowers at them, carrying out demonstrations. Some cases, the PTF flags have burnt. Then, a large number of people, I don't know the exact number, have started deserting the PTI. Many people, including MNAs and members of the provincial assemblies, have resigned from the PTI, say that we don't accept this kind of violence of the PTI. Right. That's again the army orchestrating that they are going to damage the PTI. And you never know. Right now it's the second tier and third tier leaders. You never know. Some of the top tier leaders also may decide that, enough is enough and see which way the wind is blowing and move away. So these are the steps that the army has taken. And Asim Munir has got his flock tightly with him. And Asim Munir will become even stronger after September when the next round of corps commanders will retire and he will be able to appoint 5 3-star generals as corps commanders. So really strengthen his position. Even otherwise, an army chief, once he's an army chief, gets that institutional support. And Imran Khan, believing that within the army there will be dissensions, does not realize that the army's favored position in Pakistan is because they belong to an institution. And nobody would like to destroy that institution for the sake of Imran Khan because they will lose their privileges. If the army's position is weakened, they are all going to lose. So it was very naive of him to think that he just got swept away with his own popularity that I am,
तो अब क्या इमरान खान को घबराने की जरूरत है?
हाँ, इमरान खान को बहुत घबराने की जरूरत है.
अब how do you see this playing out? Will he also end up in jail?
I'll come to that, but one thing is sure, army will not allow him to come back into power. They wouldn't have allowed him so long as Asim Munir. You see, he has a bad blood with the Asim Munir because Asim Munir, the DG ISI, he done about 6 months and he went to Imran Khan and said, look, corruption is emanating by your wife. She's the one who's involved in corruption. So Imran Khan did like that. It was his red line. So he had him sacked and brought in Faiz Hamid. So there is that history between the two. So the army is not going to get, especially after 9th of May incidents, the army will not bring Imran Khan back. Now, how do they disenfranchise him? Either they have 131 cases against him, either they disqualify him, that he's not Sadiq and Amin. Al-Qaeda Trust is one open and shut case. The Tosha Khana is another open and shut case. So there's several other cases like that. So they can disqualify him from being contesting elections. Now, if he does not contest elections, then the PTI without him is going to be
rudderless.
Yeah, will not be sick. Or I think there will some reports that have offered that you go out of the country, go to London, and don't come back into politics here. So that is another possibility that they can explore. So if he stays on, then he faces these trials, and now if he faces trials under the Army Act, he could be put away for a long time under sedition.
Okay, so you see a similar fate as befitted many of Pakistan's former premiers, which is
This is the
Prime Minister,
Yeah.
jail, and then out of the country.
Yeah.
Or assassinated.
Their crime was far less than what Imran Khan has done. The way he has directly accused the army chief and what his supporters have done. GHQ is the hallowed ground of the army. You enter it and open the gates and you ransack the Coke Man's house in Lahore, which incidentally was also where Mr. Jinnah's house. It's called Jinnah House. And then they sort of set fire to that famous aircraft of the 61-55 war. They've destroyed priceless records of Radio Pakistan in Peshawar. And they destroyed statues of martyrs. So this is something which the army institutionally will not forgive or forget.
Okay, so no forgiving, no forgetting. How do you see this playing out in the year to come? I'm not saying years, I'm saying just this next few months. Will PTI have the same fate as Awami League of Bangladesh in the 1970s? Mujibur Rahman was very popular at that time. Imran Khan is very popular at this time. But you run afoul of the guys calling the shots, in this case, the Pak Army.
I think there is no comparison. Mujibur Rahman had a program. He had the 4-point program. He knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted more autonomy. He wanted more financial resources, different things. Imran Khan has no vision. He has no program. He has no plan. How is he going to recover the economy? So that comparison is not really valid. And he was not a megalomaniac, Mujibur Rahman, of course, all leaders
But
of this.
Imran Khan is.
Yeah, absolutely. He thinks he's infallible. He thinks he's, God's gift to Pakistan and so on. So that comparison is not really valid. He has no program. And whereas East Pakistan, because of the separation, because of the exploitation, because of the cohesiveness, the Bengali language.
Ethnic,
language, that cohesiveness is not there. I mean, whether it's KPK, whether it's Baloch, the Sindhis or the Punjabis, how are they going to gel together? And under Imran Khan, Sindh is totally for the PPP. You Bhutto over there.
So I will talk about, this entire murmurs or rumors about the breakup of Pakistan, which has been going on for quite some time, even before this thing happened with Imran Khan. There were talks about the economy tanking and therefore lots of resentment. People from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, from Balochistan, from Gilgit-Baltistan, all raising their hands and sort of saying that no, this is not how we're not going to take this any further. How much credence do you give to such talk about a breakup of Pakistan being imminent?
You see, a country will break up, like in the case of East Pakistan, because of ethnic issues, of exploitation, critical mass, unifying factor, the language. If you look at Pakistan, the Baloch who have been in insurgency since 1948, 44% of the land area, but just about 4 or 5% of the population, they're not a critical mass. Right. And the Pakistan Army, they will continue to bleed the Pakistan Army. There'll be a war of attrition, but they don't have the strength today. Of course, there can be a wild black swan event and,
True.
Something can happen. You look at the Sindhis again. Because of the Mahajir-Sindh divide, they are not a cohesive population. The Pashtuns, yes. If the Pashtuns and my latest book is on the Pashtuns, if the Pashtuns of KPK were to sort of have a tie-up with the Taliban on the other side of the Durand line, the Taliban don't accept the Durand line, and neither do the TTP over here.
Yeah.
So that is one area that could, I'm not saying it will happen, but that is one area of thing. Similarly with Gilgit-Baltistan or with so-called Azad Kashmir, they're not critical mass of population. They are being suppressed, they've been dominated. Unless, again, there is events play out in the subcontinent, that's a different area. So, break up because of the fact that the economy is tanking. So far, there have never been food riots or labor protests, even if the situation is so bad, they haven't been so far. So if tomorrow again situation changes, that's a different
matter.
Different matter. But so far, it has not happened.
A lot of resentment about the Chinese debt trap and Imran Khan's role in leading them into this debt trap with the with the Chinese. He increased the amount of loans that you were taking from the Chinese. The CPEC corridor, and I'll talk about the Gwadar port in particular, where it was the promised land, supposedly, and this is going to bring development and growth to Pakistan. That's not happened. The Chinese are miffed, and the Pakistanis are suffering. And Balochistan, where the port is supposed to be held, the locals don't want the port there. So it's a merry-go-round there.
So just one other point to your previous question. And so long as the Pakistan Army maintains its integrity and chain of command, it'll keep the country together. If that were to break down, that's why Imran Khan was so dangerous. If he meddled around and tried to create a wedge in the Pakistan Army's leadership between the army chief, the corps commanders, or even among the middle and junior officers, that would have been dangerous for Pakistan. Because then, the Pakistan Army is the only sort of chain that holds Pakistan together. So that was the... Now, coming to the Chinese debt, you see, Imran Khan didn't start CPEC. It was started...
Much before, 2013.
2015, I think.
Yeah.
The PMLN government and Zardari played a big role in it, and then over here. So, Chinese loans are predatory. They go into a country which has weak infrastructure. They're very good in infrastructure. They said, no, we'll build this for you, we'll build this for you, we'll build this for you. And the countries, because they want infrastructure development, they don't have the funds for it, they lap this up. But the conditions, you see, for example, the power plants, Pakistan needs power, massive shortages. But the rate of return on those investments is close to 20-22%, which makes the electricity generated so expensive that the power companies can't buy it. Even if they buy it, the public, how they
can't afford it.
So many power plants are shut down. So the debt keeps piling up because you can't pay the previous debt. So what Pakistan has been doing in any case, even before the Chinese came in, the model of economic development in Pakistan was that they were consuming much more than what they were producing. And the balance was foreign loan. Thrice in their history, the Americans have stepped in with huge amounts of foreign assistance. During Ayub Khan's time, when they wanted the aircraft against the Soviet Union, then when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and then on the war on terror. So huge bet, $30 billion, this, that. And Pakistan stayed afloat without investing it into the real sinews of power. Whether it's education, whether it is health, whether it was population, the demographic profile, all that. They didn't do that. So even before the Chinese came in, Pakistan was taking more loans than they could repay. The Chinese came in and have just added on to that burden so much more that today the net revenues do not even cover interest and debt repayment. For everything else, they are living on borrowed money. Whether it's the army, whether it's general administration, whether it is development, it's all on borrowed money.
And a section of the people, including the army, living pretty luxuriously at that.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you about, you talked about this entire debt situation. Even Shehbaz Sharif, I think last year sometime, he said, 70 saal se hum, we're going around with a begging bowl, and which is probably what ties into what you said about them not investing in the real sinews of the economy, but actually just living on borrowed money. But now even some of their closest partners are refusing to give them that money because it's seeing through them. But these guys are still going out and asking for that money, and with their nuclear weapons on one hand and with a begging bowl in the other, saying, "Paisa de do, nahi to hum phat jayenge." So, I mean, that's
but even they
literally blackmail.
The Saudis have said that unless you get your economy in shape, we can't keep bailing you out. With great difficulty, they are giving them loans or this oil, they can buy fuel without paying for it immediately. But it's all deferred payment. Ultimately, this money has to be returned. You see, what Pakistanis don't realize that even if they've got $2 billion from the Saudis, like now, it's at 4% interest, they have to repay this. So they're just adding on to the debt. But China is the same thing. China gives 2 billion safe deposits, to boost their foreign exchange reserves, but it has to be repaid. So unless and until they either restructure the debt, which will take a hit, the economy will take a hit, they carry out structural reform. This is what is really required. The savings rate, for example, the saving to GDP ratio is probably the lowest, certainly the lowest in South Asia. Similarly, the investment to GDP ratio was the lowest. They just have not cared to invest or improve their economy for decades. So now it's all come together, and it is hitting
The
them.
chickens are coming home.
Absolutely, there is hurting them the most.
Uh,
And countries are saying, why are we doing this? What is it that we would do? So Chinese,
But there are many countries, in fact, even like China or Turkey, which is ready to give them some loan at some point.
China is the country which is now going to say, like they did with Samman Tota in Sri Lanka, all right, you want some more money? You give us control of Gwadar. We'll have our own people there, our own thing, our own policing, our own security, and we will use it. So we'll have naval ships coming. We'll have, So gradually, the Chinese cutting, as it's called, salami slicing, gradually Pakistan is going to fall more and more into the Chinese debt trap. And China will take their pound of flesh. If they think Pakistan thinks they're going to take China for a ride, they're sadly mistaken. China will take the pound of flesh.
Let me come to that part of, for this question leads me to the Indian fallout, the fallout on India of this crisis in Pakistan, the political, socio-political crisis on one hand. On the other hand, the Chinese debt trap, the economic crisis. For India, that's not a good thing to happen. Chinese slicing and dicing Pakistan and gaining more control in Pakistan. What are the views in our policy circles? What are we looking and doing? What are we going to do anything, or are we just watching closely?
See, I don't know about policy circles. I'm not part of that. I retired many years ago. But a couple of things which I think are what we are doing and what we need to do, especially in think tank circles and all that. If you're in a toxic neighbor like Pakistan, you have to watch it very, very carefully. And to see which way, what is the best case scenario, what is the worst case scenario, to game this out. Second, there is a lot of complacency in India and in the rest of the world that Pakistan has been in one form of a crisis for the last 70 years. But every time people think it's going to go over the cliff, it gets pulled back. So, is time mein kya crisis hai? It'll pull back. I don't think so. I think the situation today is qualitatively different. Therefore, we need to get out of our mindset that Pakistan, because it has survived in the past, it will survive again. It may well survive. I'm not denying that. But we need to be monitoring it very closely. And my fear, which I've articulated many and a lot of people don't agree with me, is that if the food situation and the economic situation further deteriorates, and you have a large number of refugees, 250,000, 500,000, start marching from the Sindh and South Punjab border, starts marching towards India, what will India do? What will be our reaction? You prevent them? They are, after all, economic refugees. How will you prevent them entering into India? So you need to be aware of those factors. You need to war game them. And, how do you deal with them? Are our own resources of water and food in the neighboring states, in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, in Punjab, what is their status? And we also need to be concerned, China, we already talked about, what happens to Pakistan and nukes?
Right.
If Pakistan was to, so long as, as I mentioned, the integrity of the army holds, the nukes are going to be safe. Unless they start selling it to get money. I don't see that. I think it's a, that situation. It's not, and then it's not only us. China and the US will be equally worried. Russia will be equally worried about Pakistani nukes. But that is one thing you can't lose sight of, that what happens to Pakistani nukes. So these are the kind of things we need to be monitoring. There is nothing that we can do really, and to either improve the situation or deteriorate. They don't even want to trade at a time when the cost of living is so high, and you can get the prices for 1/4 the price. Whether it's vegetables, whether it is wheat, whether all these food stuffs, they can get 1/4 of the price of India. Yet they don't want to trade. Well, good for them. Not that we are dying to trade with them anyway.
Right. It doesn't make a difference.
Absolutely, it makes a
to
difference.
us.
Yeah.
But there was a school of thought. Somebody, once said, but we are neighbors. We should help them in this time of crisis. We helped Sri Lanka. I said Sri Lanka is a very different country, and Pakistan is a very different country.
They haven't fought 3 wars is Sri Lanka.
Absolutely. How do you view that thought about?
No, you see, you can help somebody provided the man asks you for help. You can't stand at Atari and say, "Bhai, I'm going to help you." The guy said, "I don't even want your help. What are you doing here?"
Right.
You know, you don't want to look foolish. So unless and until Pakistan asks for help, being a neighbor, sorry, I mean, we're not offering it ourselves. We're not offering it. Afghanistan, for example, wanted help. 50,000 tons of wheat. We have given them 500,000 vaccines. Right. So much of medicines we have given them. Because they asked for it. So yes, India is a bigger neighbor and the biggest neighbor in the biggest country in South Asia. We were certainly willing to help, provided somebody would ask. Then you can take a call that, what is the kind of assistance that you can render.
The arrogance remains intact. That was visible when Bilawal Bhutto Zardari came to India for the SEO meeting and got a very blunt response as being the spokesperson for terror from our foreign minister general.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, it was Bhutto who said we'll eat grass but we'll get the bomb. So I think Pakistanis are used to eating grass. I think that's the way forward for them. They're not going to relent. As far as India, for them, they continue. The whole creation of Pakistan, I've written about it in my first book, was based that because they were feeling that they were, rulers for 800 years, so they are better, or at least we treat as equal. So for them to then ask, likewise, similarly, the example of Bangladesh is doing very well today in terms of GDP towards of economic development. They are horrified that how did this portion that broke away from us, was we looked down upon them, they're doing so much better than us. So that arrogance, that, that sense of we are better than you, and how can we ask you for help?
Yeah, but the fact that they're not better than anybody in the neighborhood, really.
The Afghans are worried about that.
Exactly. The Afghans, that's the irony of it all. The Afghans are worried about what's happening in Pakistan and the fallout on Afghanistan. Prime Minister Modi, I was hearing him yesterday, after a very long time, he did speak about India-Pakistan relations, and he said, we're happy to have good relations with you. But he also put the onus in Pakistan, again, to create an environment free from terror, free from the hostilities, so that normal relations can be in place. How do you view the whole terrorism prism that is there? I mean, right now they're already having so many problems, but still they don't want to stop talking about Kashmir.
Yeah. So, for example, you mentioned Bilawal. So when Pakistani journalists asked him about G20 in Srinagar, he said we oppose it, and at the right time we teach them a lesson that they will never forget.
That's an open threat.
It's an absolute terror threat.
That's an open terror threat in the Kashmir.
Absolutely. And so, you see, for them, and I think the foreign minister put it brilliantly, that they have nothing to do with Kashmir. The only thing they have to do with Kashmir is when are they going to vacate the area under their occupation. So, and then if you look at the number of drones that have been dropping IEDs, drugs, cash, weapons on the Punjab border, trying to rekindle and some kind of an insurgency over there, propaganda activities abroad, the movement abroad, likewise in J&K, because they will continue to incite a little bit of violence, whether it's in the valley, they may not be able to, but south of Pir Panjal, the last two incidents that took place in Rajouri area, they'll keep trying to do this to tell the people and the international community that no, India hasn't got a handle on this. There continues to be violence. So, with this kind of a attitude that they have, and prime ministers, absolutely put it across that look, the onus is on you. You have to stop doing all this. Then before you want, India is willing to, but you have to stop doing that.
Right, absolutely.
And then one other thing on this, you see, Imran Khan, he said, and Bilawal repeated it, that if India does not walk back on the changes of 5th August 2019, there can be no dialogue. We are not walking back on them. So there is a door is slammed. Yeah, absolutely. The door is slammed.
Neither of that.
Yeah.
That's the bigger question.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm really going to end this now. I've taken enough of your time, but my last question to you, the fate of Imran Khan, how do you see it? Do you see him in jail? Do you see him in exile? Because that's really the two things that happen to civilian premiers of our neighbor.
You see, I think he'll find it very difficult to survive in jail. He's used to a certain lifestyle. which he will not be able to survive in jail.
Okay, what lifestyle are we talking?
The kind of stuff that he's supposed to be a reporter to be doing, he likes to have his evening shot and stuff like that.
All right.
And so that'll be difficult. How will he do it in jail? That's the reason why he's scared.
So that's interesting. So he's a druggie.
So I mean, if you read Imran Khan's book and, other Ghabrana and all those statement and all those other things. So he'll find it very difficult to, so he couldn't spend one night in a Punjab police guest house, let alone Adiala jail or any other kind of jail. So he would resist it to the extent the kind of supporters will try and think, but usko ghabrana chahiye. If he needs to be, because he has put his hand into the mouth of the tiger, and the tiger is now awakened, and the tiger will not allow. You see, if Asim Munir, the General Asim Munir, was to blink, then 70 years of accumulated domination of Pakistan will go down the tube. And I think the army is not prepared for it yet. They continue to take a huge chunk of resources. They enjoy a very strong position. And, why the army is so strong. So in 1969, Major General Sher Ali Pataudi told Yahya Khan that the reason for army's domination of Pakistan is because people believe it is the last resort, the institution that will provide them succor when everything else fails. It is this charisma of the army and this aura that the army has that makes it dominate Pakistan. If that aura gets shattered, like it did get shattered on 9th of May, the generals will do everything to bring that aura back. And therefore the strong reaction in the last 5-6 days by the army, because they know they were already pushed on the back foot and they're going to come back with all guns blazing. And when the army goes on the offensive, then that offensive is of overwhelming force. They don't believe in half measures.
Right. It's the same offensive that brought Imran Khan to power.
Yeah.
And it's the same offensive that will perhaps result in his banishment.
Yeah, I think that is probably the charitable way to put it, that is banishment.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you, viewers, for watching this broadcast. Do write in to us to share your views about how you like this podcast. We will keep coming back to you with more. Stay tuned to Hindustan Times.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me over and enjoyed the discussion.